Book 10 continues Odysseus' narration of his adventures. Here he tells, among other things, the story of the encounter with the goddess Circe. At each step along the way, he emphasizes the role of the divine in the actions related. At first, when they come upon Circe's island and bring their ship to land, he says, quote, "Some god guided us in." Then, when he and his men were out investigating the island in search of food, he explains, quote, "Some god took pity upon me and sent a great stag with towering antlers right in my very path." A very similar description can be found just before, when Odysseus and his men went to the land of the Cyclops, when first, quote, "Some god guiding them through the gloom of the night brought them safely ashore," and then, when they were hungry, quote, "The god granted us the game we longed for." Likewise, at the crucial part of the story, he's given precise advice by Hermes about how to overcome Circe's magic. In the first passage, one might have expected him to brag about his skill to bring their ships into harbor. In the second passage, he might have praised his own ability as a hunter, and in the third one, his intelligence at defeating Circe. But instead, he portrays himself as an object in the hands of the gods. They direct his action and help him to succeed in his ventures, and his own role in this is rather small. Once again, this is evidence of a worldview where human activity and agency is regarded as limited, and that of nature is much stronger. Human freedom is a narrowly circumscribed sphere. Odysseus sends some of his companions to explore the island. In the forest, they come across the home of Circe. They are immediately struck by the fact that they find there a number of wild animals, such as lions and wolves, which have been rendered tame and docile by her magic. Instead of the animals attacking them as one might expect, they enigmatically come to them fawning, expecting to be fed or pet. This is the result of Xerxes' magic. It symbolizes a distortion or perversion of nature. Wild animals should behave like wild animals and not like domesticated dogs. Circe has thus confused the natural order with the human order. Then an inversion of this takes place with even more serious consequences. At first, she rendered wild animals into domesticated ones that could interact peacefully with humans. Then she uses her potions and magic wand to turn Odysseus' men into animals, specifically pigs. Again, the natural order of things has been distorted. Humans are created to behave like humans and not like animals. Circe's distortion reveals the difference between human nature and animal nature. Wild animals should behave like wild animals. They should be aggressive and should attack people. But the enchanted animals of Circe are peaceful, calm, and tame, in short, like humans. These animals are not living in accordance to their true nature. Likewise, the men transformed into pigs are not living in accordance with their human nature. The Greeks had a fixed conception of what humans were, unlike modern schools of thought such as existentialism, which reject any notion of a fixed human essence. To the Greek mind, humans occupied a specific place in the natural order of things, as did gods and animals. With her magic, Circe has confused all of this. Odysseus then goes in search of his missing men. Along the way, the messenger Hermes comes to him in the form of a young man. Hermes warns him of the danger and tells him in detail about how to neutralize it, giving him an antidote to her bewitching potion. Following Hermes' advice, Odysseus manages to resist Circe's trick. She ultimately capitulates when she sees that he, unlike all other men, is immune to her drugs. At his insistence, she restores his men to human form and even makes them appear younger and more handsome than before. Ultimately, she invites Odysseus to return with the rest of his men and take a break from their difficult wanderings. They remain there with her for an entire year. Growing impatient, his men urge him to resume their journey home. He then asks Circe for her leave, and the goddess explains to him that in order to complete his journey successfully, he must first make a terrifying visit to the underworld in order to consult the prophet Tiresias. She tells him exactly what he needs to do in order to go to Hades and return safely. This then sets up the action for Book 11. What does the Circe episode tell us about the Greeks' relation to nature? Since they understand nature to be so powerful and human activity to be so weak, the Greeks were very attentive to the signs of nature. They believed that nature communicated to them in a manifold of ways that was absolutely essential to understand what it was saying. Methods for understanding the messages of nature were needed. The flight of birds or the entrails of certain animals could be interpreted by the human mind, and thus such things were surrounded with great ceremony and used as sources of prophecy. The oracles were also examples of the communication of nature. The priestesses at the oracles interpreted the rustling of leaves of a sacred tree or the sounds of the wind blowing on metal objects hung in a sacred grove. These were, so to speak, statements of nature, which the priestess translated into human language. These were all methods by which the Greeks tried to understand what nature was saying. But Xerxes' magic undermines these practices since it distorts nature. This is a serious problem for the Greek worldview since it is absolutely imperative that nature be understood for human life to flourish and human projects to be successful. By distorting the natural world and confusing it with the human sphere, Xerxes has rendered nature incomprehensible. It's no longer possible to interpret and use nature to guide human purposes. To the Greek mind, this is a very disturbing situation since it means that humans must blindly find their own way in the world.